Overdrive, hour number 3, now on TSN 2. Jim, Tatti, Frankie, Corrado, and AB, Al's brother, a.k.a. Mike DiStefano. Which one do you like?
All three are fine.
It's nice to have different names.
You can go with whatever you want.
Yeah.
I know that Frankie's going to always and only refer to me as Al's brother.
100%. I will never call you Mike.
It's never happened.
Really?
No, I've never called
I always call him Mike.
I have him
because we could be related. We're still working on that.
It's different for you guys. You guys are family. I have him in my phone as Al's brother. I got a picture of him and everything.
The first time I ever reached out to Frankie, it was before he started working here, and I was getting him, to come on my podcast, and his response to me was, Al's brother, big fan. Not even on the first interaction.
Really?
Al's brother.
That's a special kind of bond.
At that point, I actually didn't know his name was Michael.
Yeah.
Now I actually know your name, but I still will only call you Al's brother.
That's the same. Anytime Hayes is in here, AB, how's it going?
Yeah.
Anyone around this
By the way,
complex.
I parked next to you, and I couldn't help but notice there's all these hats in the back seat of your car,
quite the collection at this point.
Yeah, so you got like Al Dog, you got Hazen Bro.
Yeah.
There's all your football hats, all your affiliations are on display.
Luke's brothers was in there. Luke's brothers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if I give you a Yes Guy hat, it'll be in there?
Probably.
Okay.
It could
I'm working
on
on that. Yeah. Working on that.
You got a merch line coming out, Tatti?
It's coming out.
There you go.
Yeah.
Free advertising in the back of AB's car.
Oh, yeah. Well, now that I know that.
Yeah. He's on the
should I do
QEW all the time, going back and forth from Niagara.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people looking at the back of the car.
Okay. We're going to look after you.
Think of all the people looking at Al's brother's
talk.
caboose.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah.
We'll talk, Jimmy.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Does it sound weird?
Not to me.
No.
I treat the family
Frankie.
with respect. Mike. Could be
fine.
related.
No one calls him Mike around here.
Just
When
me.
you were hosting Leafs Lunch, were you Michael or Al's brother?
Depends on who was on. Dreger always referred to me as Mike.
There you go.
But if it was like MJ or CJ, Julia, it was always AB.
He was always AB.
Yeah, it was always AB with Julia. Same with Johnny, was AB. But a lot of it gets shortened to AB.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
never.
Like the full
hardly
Al's brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You find you have to explain that a lot to people when you're out downtown?
All the time.
Still.
That's the number one question. Gotta ask you, how did you get the nickname?
Males or
All the
females?
time.
Who's asking you about that?
Well, you know what the demographic of this show is. So.
I think that's a no guy on the female. Yeah. I think that's a no guy. Pretty sure.
Guy who's had a few libations comes up to you.
Yeah, usually
Has to
that's the crowd who comes up to me on King West.
Well, you should say, listen, I'll tell you the story, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah.
How about
Need
a drink?
How about a drink while we go over the story?
Weird. Just noticed that I'm on empty here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do
That's
that going
something
forward.
Tatman would do.
Looks. Oh, don't do that. Don't make me laugh. I get the back pain. It's killing me. Oh, that hurts. Anyway,
You want me to set you up with a guy?
no guy.
I'll call Dr. Green. No problem. He's the best.
Dr. G is the best.
Oh, I don't
You
know.
okay
Confirm.
with acupuncture?
Oh, yeah, but that's like an endless loop.
Not with Dr. G. He'll get you straightened out.
Okay. Anyway, now that we've looked after each other, which is very bonding and nice, joining us on the Maple Toyota Hotline is Kenzie Lalonde, our Habs reporter for TSN. Kenzie, how are you today?
Good, gentlemen. How are you guys?
We're doing good. We're sort of got avalanched by Edmonton not doing the matching the qualifying offers, so now we go back to the Lalime trade from yesterday, and I guess you and Frankie agree should be the left wing on the second line, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see him and a healthy Kirby Dach go to work and see what kind of magic they can pull together, and Alex Newhook rounding them out with some speed down the middle. I think that's where I placed him. And, speaking with Ken Hughes yesterday and asking him where he as a general manager would like to see Patrik Laine injected into this lineup. Of course, offloaded that question to it being a Martin St. Louis decision, but certainly made it clear that, he wants to see him play big minutes. And, whether we assume Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Slafkovsky stay together or not, maybe there will be some juggling to see how Laine could produce with a Cole Caulfield or a Nick Suzuki. So never say never, but I do think to kick off this season, I would highly anticipate a Kirby Dach and Patrik Laine duo and Newhook rounding them out.
Kenzie, what does a successful year look like for Laine in year one as a Hab?
I mean, I guess who are you asking? Are you asking Patrik Laine that question? Are you asking the fans? Are you asking Kent Hughes? I think the answer can look a lot different. Hearing from Patrik Laine on Zoom yesterday, look, he's got expectations for himself. He even said, I don't want to come into the Montreal system and be a 30-goal scorer. I want to be a 40 to 50-goal scorer, and I want to have that kind of season. So he's excited to get to work. I don't think this is him necessarily putting pressure on himself. I think this is him seeing the potential and wanting to get back to those Winnipeg numbers. He says he's in a great place. He's loving the game again, and that's really what you want. And so, you hope to see that translate on the ice. I mean, my goodness, that would be an exciting number to have around the Montreal Canadiens system, a 40 to 50 goal scorer kind of guy. And then Kent Hughes even kind of reflected on the numbers of it all and saying in the eyes of him and this organization, it's not all about the goals that Laine scores to make this deal justified. It's about making sure he can contribute on the ice, help these young players grow. And my goodness, let's not forget, Laine is only 26 years old. But in Montreal, that makes you an elder statesman, as Kent Hughes said. So I think it's a lot of there's a lot of layers to this, but certainly creating offense, numbers aside, will be a priority that I think a lot of fans will want to see from him is being a point production kind of guy and getting those kinds of results early. I think that's what everyone would like to see.
Kenzie, you're obviously around the arena a lot in Montreal after practice, morning skates, you're asking questions, you're talking to the players. One of the things you hear a lot from the group is how strong of a dressing room it is and, how strong of a culture that they're building there. I don't know, maybe just speak to a little bit of the feelings that you get around that group and what Patrik Laine is walking into in that dressing room.
Yeah, well, Frank, too, being in the room, and considering it's a rebuilding year, it's a fun locker room. The guys are young. They've all bought into wanting to get better and knowing that if a mistake happens, it's not the be-all, end-all. And it's very rare to have a space like that when you're playing professional sports. So they've created a very unique culture in this locker room, a lot from Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, and Martin St. Louis, and how they've set the tone here. And I think Kent Hughes bringing in Patrik Laine, who struggled himself the last 2 years, goes to shore. He's betting on his room and believes they're in a good space, and Laine will benefit from this, and he will hopefully be able to add to it as well. So I think it goes to show that there is development in the locker room and on the ice, and Kent Hughes wants to help them take a step. I think as well, considering, you look at Patrik Laine, the resume there, taking time in the Players Assistance Program, and Kent Hughes, Gordon, and the staff did their due diligence and reviewed the information surrounding, the status of his physical and mental health, and they were comfortable with the information that they learned. And that was echoed with hearing from Patrik Laine and his excitement for getting back to work and joining the team, and he's really admired the style of game the Canadiens have been playing. So, you hope a lot of that conversation and that dialogue will be on display in the room. I'm excited. I think Nick Suzuki and David Savard and Mike Matheson have done a really good job of maintaining this room and keeping this buy-in mindset a top priority.
A lot of the appeal to this, hinges on Marty St. Louis and what he can do with Patrik Laine and how can he can get him back to being the player, a lot of people think he can be, and he was earlier on in his career. How hands-on have you seen Marty with some of the players like Caulfield, like Slavkovsky, like Suzuki? How hands-on have you seen him with those guys before and or after practice?
Yeah, I mean, you can always count on Martin St. Louis doing some warm-up laps, having one-on-one conversations with the guys. That's it's something you see amongst a lot of coaches. But I think what hearing through conversations with the players in troubling times is Martin St. Louis is just a good ear to talk to discuss challenges. And there's no better guy that can relate to being in a slump or being, having the odds stacked against you. He can relate to those. So I think it really appears as though he's having good, honest conversations with the guys. It really seems like there's an open level of communication there. I think there's no better example than Sean Monahan. Here's a guy who came into this organization injured, struggling, very open about where he was at with his game, frustrated. And the results showed getting healthy certainly helps that, but the environment that the Canadiens have established really does help these guys get back to their old style of game. And whether that is just mistakes are okay and it's not the be-all, end-all, can help foster a culture like that. I think, again, just as a reflection of the top-down leadership and the kind of guy Martin St. Louis is. He wears his heart on his sleeve and understands the game in all facets. And I think that's exciting when you're someone who plays for him.
So, Kenzie, I'm taking a look on Puckpedia, and after making this move, they acquired the full bulk. They didn't get, Columbus to retain anything. So now they're over the cap currently by a couple $1 million. So do we expect to see an additional move at some point? Because Montreal, when you look at their forward group, it's quite deep. Like, you look at, whichever website you want to look at for what the projected lines are. You've got guys like Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson, Joel Armia, all these guys in bottom six roles. Would you expect to see one of these guys, I guess, get dealt to try and get this team back under the cap?
Yeah, I mean, never say never. Carey Price's contract certainly is a piece to this whole conversation as well. But I think moves will continue to be in the conversation for Kent Hughes in this management. You think as well someone like David Savard, who's on his final year of his contract, and what that future looks like for him on the back end. I think that's kind of been an area of focus for the Canadiens in terms of wanting to provide opportunities for guys and get their pro careers going. And next season looks exciting for guys like Logan Mailloux or Reinbach or Hudson to get a sniff and an opportunity, considering Harrison and Edmondson are gone now, and Kovacevic as well. So the back end, there's certainly been some movement there. And so you look up front and looking at how they'll continue to manage that. I think for the Canadiens, they have players that are good trade assets, one of those guys being David Savard. So it's about Kent Hughes. I think for him, can he get what he wants? And I think that'll continue to be a conversation for him. He has made it clear he's really in no rush, but he does understand they want to continue to take significant steps, but they don't want to hinder the development for short-term gain. And so you look at this Patrik Laine deal with big picture, and he's someone that fit the timeline. So can they make another deal similarly on the opposite end of making more room, more cap space room to help better move them along? I think these will just be ongoing conversations for management as the season goes on.
Well, you mentioned the timeline, and I'm curious what you think that is, and if this trade factors into, maybe does it speed up a little bit, bringing in a guy like Patrik Laine? Like, what do you think is a timeline for this team to kind of take that next step?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And when I think of their timeline to me means, okay, when are they really going to bring in some heavy hitters to make that push, to make a cup push? I'm very interested to see how it evolves here. Laine certainly can help relieve some of the pressure that's been on Suzuki Caulfield to produce. I think he will help that, and whether after the 2 years they choose to keep him on, who knows? But I think he's a great short-term fix. And I go back for a point of reference to free agent frenzy with Jonathan Marchessault, that he was in conversation with the Canadiens, but the timeline of a deal for him, 4 to 5 years, did not fit the bill for the Montreal Canadiens in terms of finding the short-term solution. So maybe in and around the 5-year plan is really where we'll see more of a push, 4 to 5 years of bringing in key pieces. So the next 2-3 years, I can see some loans, some juggling, just to help them take a few more steps. But in my mind, nothing too significant.
Yeah, sort of along those same lines. I think if you circled Ottawa, Buffalo, Detroit, and Montreal, you're looking for sort of different things to push it forward. In this case, if you're talking about Laine, and let's say he comes in mid-30s, so a goal every third game, can you do an AI and plant that into what happened last year and see a difference?
Yeah, I think certainly. You look at the way the Canadiens, I think, when you look at their success, they were in every game. It was very rare for them to be blown out. And that's pretty big to be able to say, considering they're in their development stages. They were never out of the fight. And this is still a group with a young blue line. I mean, goodness, you look at the minutes Caden Gooley eats for this team, and he's still so young. They will still need big pillar pieces to come in and help with this workload down the line. But I think scoring goals is important for them. They finished 26th in the NHL for average goals for per game, and so scoring goals has been a little bit more of a challenge for them. And whether that is maybe just injury depletion, like let's forget, we still have not seen a healthy Kirby Dach with the Montreal Canadiens and the kind of change and influence he can have. And so we'll see. I think we'll get a better picture with Laine in this lineup as well, with a healthy Kirby Dach, what this team really can look like. So I think this season will be big in terms of a measuring stick for this ideal timeline for a playoff or a cup contending team.
So if you go back a couple years, it was there's a few games there where the Montreal Canadiens are dressing 4 to 5 rookie defensemen per game. And those guys handled it really well in tough circumstances. 2 of those guys are moving on now. Jordan Harris is gone. Jonathan Kovacevic is gone. But now there's going to be some new rookie defensemen that are going to try and take the jump. Lane Hudson, David Reinbacher, Logan Mailloux. And then you still have Arbor Jackeye and Justin Barron, who just signed 2-year extensions in the mix as well. Like, how much room do you think there is on that blue line for the new crop of rookies to take the jump and become full-time NHLers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be challenging. When you look ahead to what this Canadiens blue line is going to look like, it is new. It's fresh in that setting because they don't have Edmondson as much anymore, who did a pretty good job of helping Jackeye come into the picture, helping Barron get settled. So, Savard, Matheson, Gooley, who's that other 4 that's going to play top line minutes? That's still probably going to be a fairly young player. So it's a big workload to ask for that. I mean, Ken Hughes made it clear in the press conference that the priority is to be able to provide opportunities for these young guys to see how they manage, what their timeline looks like. So it is still kind of a trial period for this blue line, for the young players to make their mark, see if they can handle the workload. And if you take that into consideration and look at the games they played and how strong they were, it is pretty incredible. I think, again, just watching this camp will be pretty indicative to see where these guys are at and how well they blend.
Kenzie, I think we're done. Thank you. We ran out of stuff.
No problem, guys. Anytime.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Nice conversation. Kenzie Lalonde joined us on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. So let me ask you about that blue line.
Sure.
Is it good enough?
Good enough for what? Is it good enough to make the playoffs today?
Well, sometimes when you're building a team, you get caught up with we're looking at these guys, but do they mesh with the forwards? I'm talking about, the NHL blue line that has puck moving ability, good puck moving ability, and size to defend.
There's going to be a lot of puck moving ability. Like, that's going to be a strength. And I think it starts with Mike Matheson, who's really come into his own since becoming a Montreal Canadian.
Yeah, for sure. He's rebounded nicely.
It's the best he's looked in his NHL careers in Montreal.
Lane Hudson,
well,
really
so
nice piece.
That's your next guy. Like, that's going to be
got the X factor on that blue line.
Your number one power play guy, kind of cut from the same cloth as Quinn Hughes.
Yeah,
is Lane Hudson. And when he played, I believe he played the last 2 games of the regular season. He was outstanding.
Yeah,
he didn't look out of place at all. He defended well for a smaller guy, used his feet. But
they played him a lot. Played 22 minutes a night,
and he was shifty. Like, there was no shortage of confidence. He had, I believe, 2 assists in those games.
I could find out in the next 2 seconds.
He was really good.
Yes, 2 assists, 3 shots, 22. Tonight.
Logan Mailloux going to be trying to make the jump. He had a good game when he made his NHL debut. David Reinbacher, they drafted 5th overall. Like, there's a lot of puck moving players there. David Savard is going to be one of those guys. If the team is out of the playoff picture, there's going to be NHL teams that want that guy. I could even see the Edmonton Oilers looking at that guy and saying, he can, he's heavy-footed, but he's a good player. He could fit a need for them.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think he cost all that much. What did he sign?
$3.5 million.
$3.5 last year.
Yeah. I mean, that's doable.
He's 33.
You get Montreal to retain some money. There'll be teams out there for sure that'll look at David Savard. He's won a Stanley Cup before. But if you're Montreal, like you're talking about all these young guys you have, don't you want someone around? Like
That's why he's going to be around. Like,
Yeah.
until you get to the trade deadline, that's when you kind of make that decision.
Right.
But he's a big part of that blue line and helping those young guys, and they love him there. And you know what? You talk to guys who have played with him. Everyone kind of says the same thing about that guy. So he's a big part of that mentorship. And Arbor Jackey's another player who, he came into the league, kind of took it by storm, fighting guys, big hits, and not just fighting guys, like beating guys up.
Oh yeah.
Whereas, he's got to find the balance. He spent a lot of time in the American Hockey League last year. Like,
Yep.
he's got to find that balance between the fights, the hits, the puck moving, the big shot. Like, he's got a pretty enticing package if he can put it all together.
It's tough to be a Ryan Reeves on the blue line where you have to play 13, 14 minutes a night, right? You can't hide someone on the blue line like you can on the right wing. So he's got to, for sure, figure it out how to play NHL caliber defensive.
But if he can, like, that's the
They
kind
got
of
a piece.
defenseman. That's the kind of defenseman everyone wants.
1,000%.
Vegas always wants that kind of guy. Vancouver's built their blue line on, those big guys
Big,
like
lean
that.
monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's like, he actually has offense too. Like, he's got puck moving ability too. And he actually hasn't been overly healthy either. He's had shoulder surgeries now too.
So the next bit of business for NHL teams would be to add PTOs in Vegas as PTO Tanner Pearson. You're going to hear a lot of that in the next 2 weeks.
Good for Tanner Pearson,
I like
former
that.
Montreal Canadian, Stanley Cup winner with LA.
Did you play with him in Vancouver?
I did not play with him in
Who's
Vancouver,
there after?
but he was a good player.
He is a good player. Nice little depth piece possibly for Vegas, that's for sure.
Yeah, and when you're on a PTO, you can sign with anybody.
I would imagine. So I was taking a look just because we were talking about it earlier. Who's out there from a defensive standpoint? Possibly Edmonton could be looking at a PTO. Kevin Shattenkirk's still out there. Doesn't that sound like it could be a good little opportunity for Shattenkirk?
I guess it depends if you already have cornered the market on that defenseman. You know what I mean? Like, if you have Emberson and you have Troy Stetcher and you have Josh Brown already, if you add Kevin Shattenkirk, does it feel a little redundant? Are you
Feels
just
like
adding
an
another
upgrade
third pair
to
guy?
those guys for me though. Like Emberson, I don't know if he played a good amount of games in the American League last year, right? So I mean, at least Shattenkirk, he's an NHLer.
Is he a top 4 guy right now?
I don't think so,
That's what you need.
but I think you're upgrading your third pair.
Yeah. But are you kind of holding out and waiting to spend the money on someone who you think is a legit top 4 guy?
Yeah,
Or
you could
trying
go
to
that-
find a way to
that
make
route.
something work that way.
Yeah.
That's what I would be doing if I'm Edmonton. I'm gonna tread water with the blue line for the time being until I can make a move that is actually
There's
more
no hurry.
indicative of,
That,
making my blue
substance.
line a Stanley Cup caliber blue line.
that answer will appear at some point. It's an open part in the movie. Somebody walks in, there he is.
Yeah, and listen, they got pretty creative with the moves that they had to make here as far as Podkolzin and moving CC out. Like, it feels like it's an unfinished project right now. They're still working at it.
Yeah, Stan Bowman, he's got the answer. We just don't know what it is. He's got it all mapped out.
You would hope. You
Oh.
would hope. We'll find out.
Track record's there.
Yeah.
He's got it all figured out. Just hasn't told us yet.
Yes, guy.
Yeah, coming up next, Mark Zecchino talking golf. This is Overdrive on TSN 2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online. Oh, yes, guy. Welcome back to Overdrive. Jim, Tatti, Frankie Corrado, and AB, a.k.a. Al's brother, a.k.a. Mike DiStefano, a.k.a. Cugino Mike, is with us. Four monikers. I think I have 4.
What
You've
are
got
yours?
4.
There's a lot more.
Yeah.
If you go down the list there, you've got Al's brother Kuiper Jr. has been thrown out there.
Don't do
Al's
that.
brother's farmer has been thrown out there.
Really?
It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring back some of your bits for this season.
Bring him back?
Yeah.
Which one would you like to bring back?
Well, I guess you got to see if the situation warrants it.
Yeah.
Like, if the Leafs are in a rut, if they're in a skid, you probably got to bring
Farmer?
back Al's brother's farmer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could see that. Could see that being the case. We'll have to talk with the boss.
Yeah,
when he gets back.
don't know if there will be a Leaf rut during the regular season.
There shouldn't be.
No.
Should there?
No,
Pretty good
that's
team.
kind of a big story, isn't it?
Pretty good team. I mean,
There's always a rut of some kind.
Ah,
it just, 3 games is considered a rut.
Nylander
in this
hasn't
city.
scored in
if
3
they
games.
lose- If they lose 3 in a row,
Or Marner hasn't scored in 3 games.
well, I mean, Marner's gone 3 games without scoring.
I know, but
he usually
Not in a
is getting
contract year,
assists.
Frankie.
Oh, that's
Not in a
everything's
contract
magnified.
year.
Yeah.
Magnified. By the way, Jordan Spieth, and we're going to have Mark Zecchino on in mere minutes. Jordan Spieth is done, planned surgery on his left wrist.
That explains a lot, man. That was ugly over the weekend watching Jordan Spieth play. And it hasn't exactly been great for Spieth for quite a while now.
A few years, yeah.
He's got like something with his swing. It's changed so much over the years. And Zecchino can probably talk to it because he's up close and personal and he sees him practice. But I used to love watching Jordan Spieth play when he first came in. And now I watch his swing. I'm like, it looks like there's too much going on. It looks like there's too much thinking involved, and like it doesn't seem instinctual for him.
So he wasn't the longest off the tee by any stretch. His short game was superb, and I just wonder if when he started to win, if somebody didn't try to lengthen his game off the tee, and because they always do that, right? Well, you've won. Do you want to win all the time? Here's what you have to do. And once you start tinkering with technology and your swing, not everybody comes out of that.
Well, for sure, it could be the length thing. It also could be there's a lot of tournaments there where Jordan Spieth is in the mix, poised to win, doesn't win. So does that get into your head, and do you start thinking, I got to change this because I need something that's a little more mechanical, that isn't going to let me down when the pressure's on?
Yeah.
And then, you make all these changes, and now you got to swing. Like I'm watching Spieth, I'm like,
Oh, Frankenstein action?
it looks, I don't know, it doesn't look natural anymore. And maybe that, part of it has to do with the health.
Is that out of the tee box or everywhere?
It's everywhere.
Really?
I don't know.
That was the strength of his game, was everywhere but the tee box. And, so he didn't boom it. Big deal.
No. And you said it. We were so spoiled by Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Even through the aches and pains and the injuries, like you could count on Tiger for many years.
Yeah, just because at any tournament there was the Tiger content and everything else. And now it's just everything else.
Not there anymore.
Is Mark here? Let's bring in Mark Zecchino, TSN Golf analyst. And it says here, co-host of Golf Talk Canada. He's the founder, man. He's the founder of Golf Talk Canada. Marco, how are you today, sir?
That's it from now on, guys. I'm going to be known as the founder.
The founder.
I like that.
Well, you are. That's your
know.
idea. That's all you.
Thank you, James.
Before we get into Jordan Spieth, I just want to go back to, and since we were talking about Tiger, this was Tiger-esque. Matsuyama on Sunday, the shot going into 18 was a dart. That was remarkable, wasn't it?
I mean, the way he kind of came through 17 and 18, and that tee shot as well on 18 is one of the most awkward tee shots on the PGA Tour, especially to close out the championship. And then to your point, Jim, that's no picnic trying to squeeze one up there against that flag under the circumstances with the penalty area up the left, the hole surrounded by about 20,000 people. I mean, there's a lot going on there. And to consider coming home in that way, making that putt that he needs to make on 17 and then, kind of putting the exclamation point on it on 18, considering what he went through from 12 to 15, 12 to 16, I mean, I was shocked. I was with him all week. I called pretty much every shot he hit from Thursday afternoon right till Sunday night. I walked every step with him. He looked like a different human being Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and even Sunday morning, he started to look a little different. But that guy Sunday afternoon, I did not recognize him until we had 2 holes to play.
When you see him put that tee shot on the par 3 into the water, and then he's in the drop zone, and he kind of fluffs that chip, like what's going through your head there? Are you thinking this guy's going to blow it?
Very much so, and I'm just guessing a lot of things. Now, this wasn't his regular caddy, as you guys probably know.
Yeah.
Hideki getting robbed in London at the airport. His passport for his caddy never, was taken, so his caddy never made it. So for most of the week, the dialogue on the golf course amongst the media in the interviews areas was, oh, look at how good Hideki is doing and just kind of getting by and getting along with his fill-in caddy, who is a professional caddy, by the way, but there's no relationship there. There's no understanding of how a guy likes to work, the cadence, all those things that go into these long relationships between player and caddy on tour. There's none of that. But for 3 days, it looked fine. But when we got under the gun on Sunday, what you started to notice was some weird decision making, certainly speeding up his play. To your point, he rushed that shot, the pitch shot on 14. He did it again behind the green on 15 after he flubbed the first one. And you could see things just racing and speeding up. And one started to wonder, I wonder if his regular caddy was here. Would he be stepping in right now? Would he be slowing down the process, getting him to take a breath, have a bit of a conversation? Let's talk this out. That certainly popped into everybody's mind. The other thing that, came in everybody's mind was he still kind of looked invincible standing on the 12th tee. When you look at the dart he threw in the island green at 11, it was like, okay, this thing is over. And then PGA Tour officials walk up to him on 12 and say, hey, Hideki, we're looking at something you did over an hour ago back on the 7th hole where you may have stepped on a ball mark that possibly improved your line while you were off the green. That could be a two-stroke penalty. And they kind of put this in his head. They wanted his side of the story before they put a final ruling on it. Now, Hideki says it didn't affect him. But from there on out, he unraveled. I got to believe it affected him a great deal. Now, I'm not suggesting he's not telling us the truth, but players don't know how certain things affect them subconsciously. And he went on to 3-putt, almost made a mess at 13, and then 14 and 15 were a disaster. So I think those two factors, the stand-in caddy, the interference by tournament officials, tournament referees, kind of really almost changed the outcome of this golf tournament.
So news has come out over the last little bit here that Jordan Spieth, pulling out of the playoffs with that wrist injury, is going to undergo some wrist surgery. What do you make of that news, and how much does that speak to the struggles that he's had of late?
Yeah, I think, it was a surprise to me, to be honest with you, that he even made the top 70. And I don't mean because, Jordan Spieth's obviously a household name, one of the best players of the last decade. But if you look at this year, I just don't ever recall him being in the mix or ever really having a chance to win in something, especially if something of importance. It's a large bucket of missed cuts and a large bucket of, T20 something, T30 something, T40 something. You've got to go back to the first start of this year, the Century Tournament of Champions, to find his best finish in his only top 3. He had a third there at the Century, and a few starts later, he actually had another top 10 with a tie for 6 at the WM Phoenix Open. There was only one other top 10 the entire year. So it's not really a Jordan year. He looked uncomfortable the entire year. Now this news of, the wrist and how bad it actually was kind of connects some dots and makes things, some sense to this year a little bit. And I guess this is him conceiving the fact that there's no way he's going to be selected for a President's Cup team. None of us thought he would be. We feel like this team, there's a small changing of a guard going on in this year's President's Cup team with that U.S. side. Unlikely we're going to see Justin Thomas as well as Jordan Spieth. So we're going to see some new faces. So I like Jordan's decision, guys. Let's get this done as soon as possible. Why sit around? Why wait on it? Let's get the surgery done, get the healing process going, get the rehab going so I can start hitting golf balls again. Because, risks are funny things, sensitive things. Just the trust process and trusting that first contact with the ground on the range when you go back to try to hit golf balls again is a big moment for a professional golfer. So it's going to be an interesting winter for Jordan.
We were talking about him before you came on the air with us, and I was kind of just talking about his swing. And I think over the years, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're there, you watch him up close and personal, you see him on the range. Like, how much has this guy's swing changed over the years? Because I watch it now and I think, like that, I don't know, it looks mechanical, not necessarily as instinctual. It looks unnatural the way he's swinging now. Like, how much has it changed over the years?
Well, about 2.5 years ago, he went through a major overhaul of his swing, which is, kind of interesting when you figure that, the swing that we got used to from, 2013 to 2016, 2017 was the swing that, accumulated all those majors. Should have been a multiple Masters champion if it wasn't for, that choke on the back nine, rinsing all those golf balls in the water on 12 down in Amon Corner. So, this was a guy who was a regular on Ryder Cups, President's Cup. He was one of the best players on the planet for a period of time, and was doing things in the historic record books that you could only find names like Woods and Nicklaus to go along with some of the things that Jordan was doing in a very short window early in his career. And then all of a sudden, it kind of went off the planet. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm not so sure this was as mechanical as it was. He was known as the Teflon Kid when he came out on tour. If there was going to be a good bounce in the tournament and a bad bounce in the tournament, Jordan was going to get the good one. Everything just seemed to go his way. And I'm just not sure he was ever right again between the ears after what happened to him on the back nine at Augusta. I'm not too sure if he didn't carry around scar tissue after that he still never got over. Anyway, to make a long story short, it led to a complete swing overhaul, trying to get rid of a two-way miss, which he tried to play golf with for a couple of years, which is just impossible. Not knowing if you're going to hook it or cut it is absolutely impossible to play at that level. So to your point, this swing that we have landed on now, plus a manipulation of this swing because you are playing with a major injury on top of it, is a golf swing that looks very different and is very different to the swing that Jordan Spieth won all those majors with.
Just so some context on that, Mark. Really, if you're new to the tour and you start like a Jordan Spieth did, or you could come up with another name, once you win that tournament or people see the potential, a couple things happen. One is the equipment change, and the other is fine-tuning your swing and your game so you can do that on a weekly basis, which is kind of a tough thing to chase, but it does happen to a lot of people, doesn't it?
Well, there's so many traps out there. When Tiger burst on the scene in '96, won everything, won by 12 at Augusta, or was it 15 off the top of my head, in 1997. Anyway, he lapped the field for his first Masters. He decided with Butch Harmon that they were going to just tighten the swing a bit. So to your point, Jim, adjustments, tightening, just so that it's not as loose. He could control his short irons better. And because of those little changes, by the time we got to the fall of '99, he went on a tear like nobody we've ever seen before. What he did in 2000 was absolutely incredible. What he did at the 2000 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach is likely the greatest 4 days of professional golf performed by any player in the history of this game. I would argue that with anybody. But then even Tiger fell into the trap. He went and saw Hank Haney and then Sean Foley and changing his swing. And Patrick Harrington did it after he won multiple majors. More recently, guys, Victor Hovland at the end of last season, coming out of the playoffs with multiple wins, you could have made an argument that Victor Hovland was the number one player in the world this time last year based on just the recent sample size of what he did in the playoffs and then how he performed in the Ryder Cup. And all Victor Hovland did last year was work on his short game. He then decided to get a new swing coach, completely overhaul his swing, change it completely. And Victor Hovland's season has been in the toilet. It's been a lost year for Victor Hovland until recently he went back to his old swing coach, tried to find his old pattern, went back to his old thoughts, and look what happens on Sunday. He shoots 63 and almost steals this golf tournament, and Victor Hovland feels like he's going to win again soon. So I don't know what the trap is. It's a fine line. I find it interesting sometimes how players almost need something like a crutch or an excuse. How many times have you guys heard in a post-round interview with a PGA Tour player, well, I'm working on a few things right now? Always. It's almost like a built-in crutch to remove themselves from their own performance.
Just curious what Canadians you got your eyes on this weekend?
Well, Corey Connors, guys, obviously there's no cut in the playoff events. There are no cuts. But Corey Connors did not miss a cut this year. But we're still waiting for Corey to get in the mix late on a Sunday and see if he can win something, or at least get in that fight with, 9 holes to go. For a guy who has made as many cuts as Corey and one of the elite ball strikers on the PGA Tour, you would have thought this would have happened already. The other thing is, obviously, I'm looking at Taylor Penrith. He's got the big win this year. I would argue he has been the best Canadian of the last 3 or 4 months. And the difference for Taylor this year is the putter finally caught up with the rest of his game. It's going to be interesting to see if he can get into the mix as well. Hadwin, the other guy. I think all three of these guys are going to be part of that President's Cup team. I said to Bob and Adam a couple weeks ago on Golf Canada, once a Canadian punches their ticket to Colorado to the BMW, it's going to be awfully hard for Mike Weir to not put them on this team if they haven't qualified already. So I think all those 3 Canadians are already on this President's Cup team. The big question now, I think, for all of our Canadian golf fans sitting at home and waiting for this thing to play out is, with Mackenzie Hughes and Nick Taylor now, with their playoff season over, can Mike Weir find a reason, whether it's through analytics, emotion, through another international player maybe not playing as well as they should, find a way to put one of those guys on this team so we have 4 Canadians in Montreal. That's kind of what we're all waiting for right now. We're going to find out in a couple weeks.
Founder, thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Take care. That's Mark Zecchino, TSN Golf Analyst, founder of Golf Talk Canada, and also PGA Tour Radio, which he does a great job on. The only Canadian on PGA Tour Radio. It's a stunning achievement by him.
It is. He had a hell of a call last year at the Canadian Open.
Yeah.
The big... the
Nick Taylor excursion.
Nick Taylor, yeah. Great call.
We call that putt the excursion.
Really?
Don't go that far on my holidays. Overdrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Up next, our best bets. Overdrive continues on TSN 2, TSN 1050, the iHeartRadio app, and streaming online. Final segment of Overdrive for a Tuesday. Tomorrow, Fess will be in with AB and myself, and Frankie C has the day off. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds in the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Doogie?
Well, guys, we saw a 6-3 win for the Cincinnati Reds yesterday at Rogers Center. Coming into this game, they've lost 9 of their last 12 games. They come north of the border, and they win the first, and they're looking for their first series victory in Toronto in franchise history. But I like the Jays tonight. I like what Jose Barrios has done on the mound. I don't really expect the Cincinnati Reds to come out flying like they did yesterday. I might bite my words again, but we'll see what happens. And I like Will Wagner to record a hit. He had a nice start to his career. He's coming here. He has a home impression. They sent him down. They bring him back up. He has a lot to prove. So we're going to go Will Wagner to record a hit, George Springer to record 2+ bases, and the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line, and that equals plus 328 on the FanDuel Sportsbook app.
Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. The first inning means as much as the ninth when you bet baseball on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 19 and over you must be, and physically located in Ontario. Did you see the way Doogie just played right into that camera?
No, was he looking right at the
right
camera?
into it.
Oh,
Right into
yeah.
it.
Oh,
Just,
really?
Just right into it.
What a pro.
Picking up on the P's
You
and
get
Q's.
used to it. There's a couple monitors in this room here. You just
Look,
kind
there he
of.
is again. He's doing
Yeah,
it
you're
again.
doing it again.
I was always
man.
taught eyes never lie. Eyes never lie. They always have to be.
Is this like you learned this in broadcasting school?
I did.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
They
that.
always taught the young broadcasters that eyes never lie, and it's kind of stick with me.
What does that mean? Eyes never lie.
Essentially, just the camera's on you. You're kind of
The
talking
camera?
towards your audience,
It's a camera eye contact.
right? You got to
Yeah.
stay within. You know
Show
who
us,
you're talking to.
show us your look into the camera.
I can't.
Jimmy. If we
My
get,
glasses
like,
are
if we get
bad.
the ice-
They don't-
there we go.
they-
Give us
the
the
glasses
one
are
shot
bad.
there.
There, right. See, right there. Right there.
Nice.
And I'll tell you a little tip what I used to do.
Okay.
When I was on camera regularly. I walked right up to we used to call it the auto cue. Some people call it the teleprompter. I looked right through the auto cue, and I knew where the inscription was on the lens to tell me where that lens was when I looked above it.
Okay.
I picked my spot so that you couldn't see me reading, even though I was all the time.
Did you ever get nervous when you didn't have the prompter?
No.
You had a lot of stuff you had to remember and
No.
spit out?
No.
You're a pro.
Never got nervous on the air.
Yeah.
After year 2. Year 1, I was like,
You're
Yeah.
a true pro, Jim.
yeah. But, yeah, well, you do it 10,000 times. And
Yeah.
you sort of develop a feel. At least you should.
Yeah.
Well, look at you. You're a bunch of
do
naturals
this.
here.
We do this.
All
It's
naturals.
all good.
Yeah. Okay, good.
All
That's-
under your tutelage, Jimmy.
I'm not taking responsibility for that. Don't blame me for that. So
no
we've got
one's blaming you.
Jays tonight. Barrios on the mound, and he's 11-9. You like what he's going to do?
I like what he's going to do this evening. I like what he's done the entire season, actually, and now it's just going to be a moment where the Jays bats have to step up, and it's the young guys now. So Will Wagner.
Here we go again with that.
Will Wagner.
It's all in the bats again with the bats.
This is what we're watching the Jays for now, is to see guys like Wagner, Horwitz,
Lopafito.
Yeah, exactly. What do they do the rest of the way? And ultimately, there's going to be a lot of changes next year, but they got to make a good impression so you're in the mix come next year.
Still got a whole other month.
I'd sniff on a Wagner RBI prop, by the way.
Ooh.
Sitting on fourth, you got Vladdy hitting, you've got Springer in front of you.
Well,
Get some guys on base for him to bring in.
And right out of time. See you tomorrow.